Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, every time you think a genre is played out, there's a film that comes along and just knocks it on its ass and reminds you that there's still places to go with it. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to assume that you do, because you're listening right now. You can subscribe to the podcast. You can find us over at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, basically wherever you get your podcasts. Give us that old subscribe and a 5-star rating. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there too, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we're on Instagram at, you guessed it, at In the Seats. And for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because if we love to write about it and talk about it and watch it and, do everything else with it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please pay us a visit. On this one, boy, we got a fun one. After a limited theatrical run, and it is now available not just on Shudder, but also on Blu-ray from our friends over at Raven Home Entertainment, we have The Sadness, and it is a zombie movie with a little bit of a twist. And I will admit, it's, when the tagline talks about a virus mutating, I do get a little nervous, but in this story, when a virus spontaneously mutates, it gives rise to a mind-altering plague. The streets erupt into violence and depravity, as those infected are driven to enact the most cruel and ghastly things they can think of. Murder, torture, rape, and mutilation are just the tip of the iceberg with this one. A young couple is pushed to the limits of their sanity as they try to reunite amid the chaos. The age of civility and order has gone by the wayside. It is no more. On all that rests is the sadness. Be warned, if you're interested in watching this, it is in Mandarin. But also it is extremely gory. It is definitely one of the gorier films that we have seen in recent time. And we had the unique pleasure of sitting down to talk with director Rob Jabbaz about the origins of the story, just shooting it, and kind of the zombie story in general, and just how there's still material to sort of mine there. And he makes it's a gory film, but it's a fantastic one. And if you have Shudder, I check it out. If you want to pick up the Blu-ray from our friends over at Raven Home Entertainment, I recommend that too. But first, check out our talk with Rob, because between you and me, it's a pretty good one. All right. Well, obviously, just first off, man, congrats on the movie, man. It's a hell of a flick. I guess my first question is just like, walk me through the origin of the story on your end.
The story. Well, when I kind of was given the task to do a movie that had to, like, there were a few sort of like, I was commissioned to write this film, right?
Right.
It wasn't sort of like a thing that I was passionate about for many years or anything. It was just like, like, you have an opportunity to do a zombie film, but here are the caveats. First of all, it has to be a Chinese language film. Okay. Second of all, it has to be like, human on human violence, like violent and sort of an action horror kind of thing. And the finale, this is a weird one. The finale has to take place like in a hospital. I want people running around in a hospital at the end. I was like, all right, so that sounds pretty good. So then we started thinking, I started thinking about like, what sort of thing I could do to make it stand out. Because my first, my mind first goes to sort of like, how can I make this thing original, and how can I make it kind of feel like something that hasn't been done a million times before? Because I have to spend a lot of time working on this thing, like after the shoot's over, like, I mean, there's all this stuff that has to do. So how can I stay invested in it? How can I make it into something that I care about? And then and I thought, okay, well, what if we make it like really like vulgar and that's kind of where and like, you know, malicious and we make the infected people like just really evil and like just psychotic, horrible maniacs. You know, maybe that's the way to make this scary. Maybe that's where like the scariness can come from. And then you know, I've talked ad nauseum about how I was influenced by Crossed, the comic book, and also the Screwfly Solution, which is a short story by Raccoona Sheldon, which is the pen name of I think what is it, James Tiptree Jr., but that's also a pen name for like I think some other, like, because it's a woman who wrote. Anyway, sorry, this is getting into something that's not important. But anyways, so yeah, so once I had kind of like the thing, okay, this is going to be a really gory and nasty movie, and that's going to be kind of what makes it stand out. Then, and also it has to be a Chinese language film. The best thing I can think of is to try to make like the story structure fairly straightforward, just to hedge my bets, you know, like I don't want to have like you know, sort of very dialogue heavy kind of stuff. I want it to be more about like the sensation. I think that's actually, like, regardless of the language thing, I think actually for this kind of film it's better. Like too much story can actually, I've seen it get in the way of films sometimes, like where it's just like the meat and the, you know, exciting stuff about the film is like the sensation of it and like the squirmy kind of anxiety, and you can kind of get away from that if it's too much, like if there's too much like story, you know. So anyways, I just thought, I know I'll just use the structure of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, where it's just like, you know, somebody goes, like, introduce the characters, and then they just sort of have to go from point A to point B, and then sort of on the different like on the journey to the final destination, they're like, you know, like first they're you know, at the truck stop, and then they're at the you know, whatever, like they're at the biker bar, then they're at the Alamo, and then they're at the Universal Studios, and like in each sort of little scene, it's sort of like there's like a vignette, like a bunch of stuff happens, and then Pee-wee gets chased out of there, and then with the sadness, the scenario is like there's two Pee-wees, there's like Cat and there's Jim, and then it just alternates. So I mean, you know, that's how I did the story. Like it was very like you know, just kind of figuring out just sort of the most efficient way to kind of get a job done. You know, I guess with the sadness, I'm not, it really was more about just like delivering a product or something, I guess. It would like that, you know, I mean, there's a lot of creativity that kind of goes into kind of like the film, but in terms of the story, like in terms of like, you know, whatever, the script, like that to me, I don't know, everyone thinks they know about making movies and what's important and like how important this is and how, you know, whatever. But like for me, like the script of The Sadness is like just sort of a way to hold it together.
For sure. Yeah.
But it's not really like, it's, I mean, I just got finished watching Adaptation, the Charlie Kaufman,
right.
Like Jones. I mean, you know, that's those movies, all of Charlie Kaufman's scripts are just like, you know, they're movies for writers, and and The Sadness is not that. The Sadness is all about like just like feeling, like sensation, you know. When I say feeling, I don't necessarily mean emotion. I mean more like just like, you know, a visceral experience. That's kind of what I was trying to do with that.
Well, I mean, I think that's what I loved about it, because I mean, obviously, like throughout the history of filmmaking and storytelling when it comes to zombies, the base core of what the zombie is just stripping us down to our our base urges, which has always been to feed, but there's more than one base urge. The other base urge, quite frankly, is to fuck. And like this film really kind of dives into that. And I mean, I'm kind of curious, why do you think we've like the zombie trope has never sort of gone that far? Because I mean, it really feels like like it's kind of amazing to me that we've never had another zombie movie where people are just want to run around and fuck all the time.
No, I mean, first of all, like the comic Crossed is probably the one that people will cite the most. I mean, and of course you said specifically movie, and this is a comic series. But then like prior to that, there's also what's it called? It's called the Fog, but not the John Carpenter one. It's hold on, let me just look it up here. The Fog novel by James Herbert. The Fog by James Herbert is the novel, and it's like this idea of like a fog that does basically turns people into the same thing as in the Sadness, where it's
right.
they're maniacs, and there's a sexual aspect. Even the basketball scene, the basketball court scene in the Sadness is actually very much inspired by a gym class scene from The Fog, where a phys ed teacher is like physically and sexually assaulted by like the class.
Yeah,
and it's pretty fucking hardcore and kind of like a pretty striking scene to have in a novel from 1975, you know. So and then I mean, there's other comics too. Like there was I can't remember. I think there might have been like a Warren Ellis comic that was similar to. I think that might have been called like Black Gas or Black Cloud.
okay.
I forget. But it's there. This kind of thing has been explored. Like this kind of sort of there's sort of like an epidemic, like a transmittable thing that makes people into insane people, and there's a sexual aspect to it. And yeah, like I mean, it's definitely you see it in some places. There's even like some Japanese movie like The Lust of the Dead was like a similar theme. But I think, I mean, if you're asking me the question, why don't I think there are more of these kinds of movies? It just comes down to like, you can't really sell this kind of stuff very easily.
Yeah, well, that's fair. Yeah, no, that is absolutely fair. But I mean, it because I mean, really, the whole zombie trope really is born out of social commentary and just sort of making comments on certain things, be it Romero and commercialism and all that kind of stuff. But in watching your film, it really did feel like it was a commentary of almost mid-pandemic life, as we sort of forgot how to sort of coexist with one another. Was this commission sort of born mid-pandemic or out of the pandemic? Like when you were putting it together, how much were you conscious of, I guess, maybe the social commentary that maybe the film would be making, or is it just more for you about sort of taking the zombie sort of idea to sort of that next step, like you referenced in some of those comics that were influential for you?
Yeah, just real quick, I just wanted to say that I was talking about Black Gas by Warren Ellis and
Okay.
Max Flamara. But anyways, yeah, like that's another one that I should cite. People should look at that one too if they're interested in this kind of stuff. But anyways, yeah, like it's funny because when you're making a movie, usually you have like usually what'll happen is like you'll make a movie and then there's all this sort of business shit that has to happen, and then like if you're lucky, maybe it'll come out next year, and you just have to hope that if you're trying to make like a political movie or something, like you just have to hope that some of the hot button issues that you try to touch upon stay relevant, like all the way into next year, or you have to kind of gamble and try to predict like maybe what the next one, what it'll be coming up,
Right.
But like with the sadness, to be frank, I really think that all the political, like it's really funny watching, because now that the movie is kind of like kind of out a little bit, and I'm seeing some people on YouTube like talk about it. It's funny because they're like, yeah, the movie tries to be like political, but it doesn't really get into the, they kind of are dismissive of the political intentions of the film. But it's like I was trying really hard to like not make it political, like to try to make it as not political as possible, but just have enough in there just to kind of have sort of a narrative bedrock. So like, for example, like the government, the government announcement scene, like that's not what Taiwan, what that would look like in Taiwan, like just like that sort of format of like the blue curtain and sort of like that's very like 1950s kind of looking, but the intention was like, a lot of, we're thinking beyond Taiwan with this movie. We want this to be a movie that is like an international, it's like a saleable to like an international market. So sure. So we kind of like just made it like the government, like just right. Like something very broad. And it's really a lot more about like, from your perspective as like as a guy who's, like in sort of this, life or death situation, just kind of like watching the TV, hopefully, maybe the government's got some solution to this. And then all of a sudden, you watch like, the president be murdered on TV, and then like, it just be like, boo, like the red screen comes up with the warning, and you're just like, oh no. And it's like, it's just that feeling of like, now what do we do? Like that's basically what that scene is for. It's more just sort of in service of the horror. And as far as like the virus stuff is concerned, like, I mean, we were in the middle of a pandemic in Taiwan, but we weren't really experiencing it because Taiwan kind of had like zero COVID, one of the few countries that had zero COVID, like for the first like maybe 14 months or so. So we were just able to make the movie. Like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, the movie was made because of the pandemic, and they take that incorrectly. They take that like, oh, we made the movie to capitalize on the pandemic. But no, we made the movie because like Hollywood was closed, like the entire movie industry in the world was closed, but Taiwan was open. So we made the movie because we were open and no one else was open. Like that's the reason why. It's not because we were like, like, oh, we got to make a pandemic movie, like what's that, like Songbird or whatever that.
Right.
That
yeah.
It's like what, we didn't make it like to talk about the pandemic. We just made it because like we could. And then we also thought like, sort of cynically, like this actually is the kind of movie that people kind of want to be seeing right now. So that was like the second, that was the second part of the decision, or rather the second decision that was made, that it should be about a pandemic. But here's the thing is like, I mean, this was way before the vaccine aspect. Right now, like the vaccine, actually even that is becoming sort of like a passé issue. Like in the beginning, it was kind of just like, oh, whose fault is it? Oh, is it a genetically engineered virus? And then after a while, it's like, okay, that's just not an issue anymore. We're not going to talk about that anymore. Okay, fine, whatever. And then it's like, okay, well, is the vaccine going to fucking, give you like make your heart explode, or is it going to, keep your, make it so you can't get your dick hard anymore? Like, you know what I mean? Like just like it all becomes about this vaccine stuff and vaccine politics. And we had no way to anticipate that, In fact, there was even a suggestion that made by somebody that we should make the virus in the sadness, the Alvin virus, actually mutate because of a vaccine. Like that should have been a plot point,
Right.
And I thought, Yeah, I mean that sounds like a good idea, maybe, but we ended up just not going with it because again, I just felt like it was like too much too much plot, too much like, oh, we have to hold up the story and start talking about all this like lab stuff, and it just wasn't that interesting to me. I just wanted there to be blood and gore and stuff. So like luckily that worked in our favor because if we had done it that way, the sadness would come out right around the time when everybody would be in the middle of like sort of the vaccine debate, and the sadness would come off very clearly as like a anti-vax movie, like don't get the vax,
right.
it'll fuck you up. So it's like, it's funny how you just you make the thing that you think is, you just sort of make the thing you think feels right, and if it comes out and then it comes out and it will meet the audience at a particular time, and it may work or it may not. But in the case of the sadness, it seems to sort of have worked in some way. But a lot of basically just to sort of sum everything up, a lot of the political, or I would say all of the political themes in the sadness, people are just bringing that themselves to the film. Like a lot of that stuff was not really considered in any kind of real thoughtful way. It was all just sort of in service of the horror and in service of the action.
Oh no, and I mean, I agree with you on that, because I mean, I definitely think people are bringing a little bit of that to it, because it just feels more, human as opposed to forced. Like, I mean, thank God you didn't make this film about the pandemic where it's commentary therein, because I mean, Songbird was shit, but that's another story for another day.
I never saw it. I don't even know what it's about, but I just remember that being like the first vaccine or the first pandemic movie,
Yeah, trust me, it was not very good.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Maybe I won't see it then.
No, but I mean, and now something else I'd love to ask, because this is your first feature, and I mean, I'm kind of curious, how does the process change from like working on a 6-7 minute short versus working on a 90+ minute feature, or is it just basically an extension therein?
Yeah, I think it's just an extension therein. I think like the hardest thing with making a long film, I think, is just making sure that everything matches. Like just like trying to make sure that you have, because you're shooting out of order to try to save money on certain things.
Right, of course.
And well, I mean, sometimes like I think that the Road Warrior was shot in order. There are some films that are shot in order, but like most of the times they're not, right? And the thing is that like you're just praying to God that like the weather will be the same on like day 2. If you shot something on day 2, you're just hoping that on day 17 like the weather will be the same, because like the two have to match. And there's some instances where like you you're shooting a thing where someone's on a phone, but then like the person who, like the actor who is supposed to be on the other end of the phone, and you already got them on the other end of the phone, they've wrapped already, so they're not there anymore. So like the actor on the phone in the second part can't actually have a real performance. Like you have to just sort of have someone be like please come help me, and then like the actor has to respond to that with like with a screen worthy performance. Sorry, I'm getting maybe a little bit too into the detail, but like the point that I'm trying to make is that there's just a lot of like trying to keep track of a lot of things that like across, like it's just a larger I don't know, like it's a larger sort of tapestry or whatever, patchwork or something. So you just have to like have people either be able to keep track of it yourself, or have people that you're paying to keep track of that kind of stuff for you and make sure that the continuity is all there. But as long as you have it written and storyboarded, and you have enough time, it's not that much different, because you just go in at in the morning and you shoot until you get all your shots, and then hopefully and then you just keep doing it again and again until it's done. And that's basically how it works. But really the only thing that becomes more difficult, like I said, is just the continuity and making sure that you sort of don't have any loose threads. And when you sit down to edit it, you're not like, oh shit, I need this, but I don't have that, you know? So that's basically, I think that's the main difference. That's what I found. I didn't find it to be like overwhelming. I found it to be like hard on me, but I didn't find it to be like, you know, impossible to manage or much different in terms of comparing it to a short.
I've got to imagine when you're spraying fake blood and fake, you know, human viscera and human vomit everywhere, that continuity has to be an important thing.
Yeah, that was a thing that came up a lot, but the way that we kind of the way that, well, you know, to be frank, the thing that I thought of was to just do all the violence, like all the gore hero shots as like very tight close-ups, and that way, and also like do a lot of like editing, like do a lot of like cutting, like you know, it's sort of like the like, again, like people who are just sort of casual viewers of movies, like they, or I guess some people in general, not to make any kind of you know, what's the word, like how do you say that, you know, I don't want to like assume anything about a viewer, but like I feel like it's very fashionable to have like action shots that are done in like one long take, like that.
Right,
what's
right,
that?
right.
Was it 1912 or whatever? Is it 1912?
1917, yeah.
1917. We saw it really for the first, like we really saw it for the first time, like and like in terms of an action scene in like Children of Men. Like of course we saw it with Goodfellas, right, and stuff before that, but like but in terms of like people being like, it's all in one shot, you know, like it's like Children of Men, because there's explosions and there's choreography and there's paper blowing around and stuff. So like that kind of stuff, you know, I don't know. That was kind of like, I guess when, you know, people were kind of telling me like, oh, we really should do a lot of this gore stuff digitally because we can fix it later. And I was just like, no, we have to do it practically. And it's like, well, how are we going to get them all to kind of synchronize and stuff? And I'm just like, what do you mean? Why do they have to go off at the same time? And it's like, well, how are we going to get it all in like one shot? I'm like, we're not. We're just going to edit it. It's easier that way. Let's just do it that way. Like, I mean, and that I like editing. You know, editing, that's part of movies. It's part of cinema, right? So I just thought like that. Like usually when people are thinking about like the CG kind of in the context of like gore and of you know, blood and stuff, like it making sort of the production easier. I think that they're thinking of like doing things in like long continuous takes, whereas you know, I'm not against long continuous takes, but I don't think that's like what makes a movie good, you know. It's like maybe if we have more time and more money, I could do a couple of those in my next film, but for the sadness, like whatever, you know, we'll just keep it simple, stupid, you know, just do nice tight close-ups so that we can see the gore clearly, and then go on to a reaction, go to another gore scene. So yeah, like I mean, the continuity issue wasn't, it's not unmanageable if you just kind of, you know, kind of set up your pieces in a way that it, you know, that's easy as possible. Like don't make it difficult for yourself. Make it easy and just deliver on the stuff that you want to deliver. Not worry too much about being I don't know, what's the name of that guy? The guy who did Children of Men, like Denis Villeneuve or whatever his name is.
Oh
like,
no, that was Alfonso Cuarón.
Oh, that's right. Oh yeah, that guy's cool. Oh, they're both cool actually.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
They're just better than me, and I'm jealous. But anyways, yeah. What else? You got anything else?
Well, yeah. I mean, just to put a bow on this, I mean, because I mean, sadness is not what audiences will call a traditional zombie movie, but I mean, inside the zombie subtrope, there's freedom. Like you can play it pure gore, you can play it serious or you can play it silly and funny. Like, what is it about sort of the idea of the zombie that allows for the kind of creative freedom that not only you've shown with the sadness, but in so many different other films as well?
I'm not sure. Like I think I don't know. Like I mean, maybe it's just like it's the same question you could give to like something like just a classic monster, like
Right.
werewolf or a vampire or something. Like it's just it represents it's specific enough in terms. Okay, I'm thinking of something here now. So it's specific enough, like in terms of like the the general rules, or I guess you could say, like sort of there needs to be sort of some sort of communicable disease, like a zombie can make other zombies, and then there's also sort of like a, I guess, a mindlessness sometimes, like in the sadness. That's the thing that changes, because there's not really mindlessness, but there is sort of like a inability to kind of control oneself, I suppose. Maybe that's what it comes down to. But generally it's sort of like for example in Return of the Living Dead, like they're kind of they're intelligent and they can speak, but they're just driven to eat brains beyond any rational consideration of anything, right? So there you go. They just don't happen to be horny like the ones in the sadness. But just given sort of like the one zombie makes another zombie, and also sort of this maybe we'll just say, okay, and they're kind of mindless, or they're driven beyond rational thought. And also they kind of work together. Like there's like these, oftentimes there's just scenes of just buildings or blockades being overwhelmed by just sheer numbers. Given those things, you can kind of slot in whatever allegory you want to, whatever particular political topic. Like if you want to talk about like communism, if it's like if it's in the 60s or whatever, you can say, oh, this represents communism. Or you can talk about sort of like in Dawn of the Dead, the Romero Dawn of the Dead. You can talk about like just the mindless zombies that consumerism has given rise to, or what I mean? Like you can kind of make it an allegory for something else, in the same way that you can do the same with vampires and werewolves. Like with werewolves, sure, you can talk about like, oh yeah, it's about a guy who it's about like the repressed sexual desires, or with a vampire, it's like, oh, it's about a guy from it's about a guy from Eastern Europe who has very strong sexual desires. Seems to all be about sexual desires, this stuff. Anyways, yeah, but I think that's probably it. It's like it's just vague enough that you kind of throw in your own little message, your own little subtext chunk, and then you can use it. But I don't know. I think probably just the reason why we keep getting a lot of zombie movies is probably just because they're pretty easy to like make, like comparatively. Like you just get some fake blood and some makeup and dirty clothes and whatever. And I don't, yeah, fuck. I mean, and then with like video games, like there's so many zombie assets out there that you can just get for free and just make your like quick bullshit zombie game. There's no end to zombie computer games, that's for sure. Those are gonna keep going. There's no end in sight for that, Anyways, sorry. Let's keep going.
Yeah,
Anything
but
else?
I mean, unlike some of the zombie stuff you referenced, I mean, I think here you've made something that I think is probably at the end of the day the important thing for an artist, be it from a contract job or not. You made something people are going to talk about at the end of the movie.
Well, okay,
by the time the movie's over.
I feel like I through this interview I have had somewhat of a flippant tone about it, like, oh, I didn't really care that much, or like no, but I do take a lot of pride in this film. I think
I'm not saying you don't, but I mean, artists will be commissioned and get jobs, and that's just part of reality when you're doing this kind of work. I mean, these things will
David,
come
David,
up. It
please,
doesn't mean it's not good or creative.
David, please. I'm not accusing you of anything there. I'm simply saying that, like, of my own volition, that I'm very proud of the film. The film feels just about the way that I want it to feel. Like I like the sort of the modulations of tone, and I like how it's sort of serious, but also kind of for fun. Like it feels kind of it just has the tone that I really was trying to like when I watched the film in its final form. It has the tone that I was really going for. So, and that's really what I like the most about it. Like it feels the kind of scary that it does, and the kind of like sort of like revulsion at like the way that it sort of skates the line. And I like it. That's kind of what I am the most proud of the film, is just sort of that kind of stuff, as far as like just sort of the my contribution to the zombie genre. Like I'm not really, I don't really think about it that much, but I am very proud of the film is basically my final thought.
Well, and you should be, man, because I mean, it speaks to the language of cinema, and it pushes past language barriers. It gives us, human barriers, and lets us sort of see this story unfold and see these characters sort of in like, and as you admitted, are in a very much sort of a base form, but really sort of get down to, like, at least from my perspective, what the root of what a zombie is. And I mean, I think that's why this movie is so entertaining and so fun, because it makes you think and it makes you talk afterwards. And I just want to say thanks for this time today, man. I mean, thanks for talking to me. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, no problem. I enjoyed it.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.